Welcome to Talk Purpose and Truth, shifting you into higher consciousness. A show that elevates, uplifts, and encourages listeners to grow, heal, awaken, and evolve. Eden and Kim include bold topics, interviews with inspiring guests, experts, and celebrities, intuitive readings, channeled messages, mental health awareness, and hot topics to expand your awareness. Tune in for unprecedented truth, authenticity, on-purpose discussions.
It's Kim and Eden. Hi, Eden.
Hi, Kim. We're this is a special episode that we're doing today, isn't it?
Yes, we are very excited. Many of you, we love you. You're loyal listeners for so long now. It's been almost 5 years and almost 200 episodes, and we have never had a guest or a topic like this. And so it's just really special. So we're very grateful. So I will jump right in.
Yeah, let's get to it. I want to hear him.
Yes,
I want to hear his story.
Yes. Okay, so Vincent Tolman, he's Vinny. We get to call him Vinny. At the age of 25, he was found dead in the bathroom of a small restaurant. He had been dead for over half an hour. He was later revived out of a body bag, and he awoke 3 days later from a coma. He will share his beautiful experiences and what he learned about life while he was gone. And then we noticed that it was also the 21st anniversary of when this happened, the day we're recording right now. So
yeah,
that's extra. We're honored. So we want to hear the whole story, Vinny. So thank you for being here and welcome.
Is it your 21st anniversary right today?
Today's my and I call it my death anniversary. So today's my 21st death anniversary. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to explain that to us?
Absolutely. So tonight you get to talk to a dead guy. That's me. I was found dead in a Dairy Queen bathroom. I had aspirated. I had taken a toxic supplement. My best friend had taken it as well, but he had passed out in the booth at the Dairy Queen. So they called 911 and hauled him away, and he ended up being just fine. They pumped his stomach. They kept him overnight at the hospital, but he was released the next morning. But with me, I wasn't found until over an hour later. When they found me, I was cold to the touch by then, and I was clinically dead. The emergency services that responded, they pronounced me dead. They put me into a body bag. And the weird thing is I didn't know it was me, though. I really didn't know it was me. I went straight from being in my body to all of a sudden sitting in this movie theater. That's what it felt. I felt like I was sitting in a comfortable theater seat, and I was looking down, watching this body on the ground. And it looked like me, and the guy was even wearing clothes like me. But I was looking down and seeing me right here. I was literally looking down and seeing my arms and my body. So I thought for sure that's not me. That's someone else. I feel bad for whoever that is. And so I was just watching everything play out, watched them bag the body, watched them put it in the back of an ambulance. And this ambulance crew, they had a brand new guy. He was a rookie. And he was sitting in the back of the ambulance. He was the third man. And he felt kind of left out. He wasn't allowed to do much with this job yet because he was the new guy. But he was on the body duty where he had to babysit that body while they got a bunch of paperwork filled out by the manager of the restaurant and a bunch of the patrons and other workers there. And so he's in. Go ahead.
Quick question. So you're telling us this is it from the point of view of where you are, your spirit, your soul is watching, or it's you found, so you knew that all of this?
Yeah. I watched it all happen. Yeah.
Okay.
So I watched all this happening. I watched this rookie feel really bad, and he started to berate himself in his mind. And here's an odd thing. When you're on that side of energy, when you're outside your body, you hear every thought of everyone.
Wow. That's
everyone. Cool. And so I was sitting there hearing his thoughts, and he was thinking things like, why am I even becoming a medic? Why do I even do this if they won't let me make a difference? Why didn't we try harder? He wanted to do all these other steps or procedures to try to resuscitate the body. But the other veteran medics are like, that's not feasible, because if they're cold and and the symptoms are there of death, you don't go to those next steps. But he wanted to. He wanted to go to the next steps. He knew he couldn't, though, because he would get in trouble. He waited until the two veteran medics got in the ambulance and they drove away from the scene. They were about a block and a half away from the scene when, out of nowhere, I saw a light form around him and an energy tell him that this one's not dead.
Oh my gosh, I have chills.
Me too.
He didn't listen to it, though. He kind of shrugged it off like, no, that was your imagination. But only a few feet later, he felt it again. But this time it was even louder and brighter, the light that was around him. And the second time that it was told to him, this one's not dead, he followed it. The first thing he did is he broke protocol. He unbuckled the straps around the body and he unzipped the body bag and he started feeling around for a pulse. He didn't feel one anywhere, but he knew that one of the strongest pulses is in the femur area, in the leg. So he went to go feel in the leg, and there in the leg, he did feel something. He felt what would be described as kind of like a shock or a spark. And to him, that was enough. That was enough of a sign that he felt it was worth putting his career on the line. If this guy was even potentially alive, he felt it was worth it. So he began to resuscitate the body by putting oxygen in the lungs and hooking the body up to a defib machine. Now the defib machine, it didn't have any response off the first round. The second round, it gave a single heartbeat. And on the third round, it gave a steady heartbeat.
Oh my gosh.
And one of the miracles of all this is at this point where the body is revived, it's a minimum an hour and a half, at least, maybe an hour and 45 minutes. But the body was revived 100 feet from a hospital, like literally 100 feet from a trauma center. So the fact that this happened just almost pretty much in front of the hospital, they were able to pull right into the trauma center and have a team there who was ready to meet this body and start working on it. And it was at this point that they were transferring the body from the medical gurney onto the hospital gurney, that they had to like straddle it and strap the body down because it was going into seizures. Oh. And I felt someone strap my arm. And I looked down and I was looking at the strap from the hospital on my arm. Mm. And I had this crazy, fearful moment where I felt like, how the hell did you not know you were dead? This has been your death you've been watching this whole time. And what I call like an egoic moment, my ego stepped in and said, you idiot, how could you not know this is your own death? And it was just absolutely horrible. I felt so dumb. Oh. And as I was feeling all these feelings, I started to now see every bad thing I ever did in my life, every bad thing. But I didn't just see it from my perspective. I saw it from the perspective of those that I did it to, including like stealing a piece of candy or stealing my brother's candy or my, like little things, all the way up to big things. I saw everything. And I got to this point where I saw everything bad that I ever did, and I felt horrible. I felt like I wasn't worth living or existing. That's what it felt like to me. Mm-hmm. And I had that thought, you're not even worth existing. Look what you did. And I was looking back at all this bad that I did. And as I was doing that, this warmth came over me. This warmth that started on my back. It started from like the heart space around my back. And it started to warm over the top of my being. And with that warmth came memories. And it came memory after memory, all the good things I ever did. And there were so many more good things that I did than bad.
Good. I'm glad that happened.
As I was seeing all these good things, and even times where I didn't know I was doing good, I was seeing good that I was doing. And I got to see all of this. And as it was happening, I felt this tremendous unconditional love just start to pour over me. And I knew that the love was coming from the direction of behind me. So I turned around to see who or what was sending me this love. And this love is just pristinely powerful. It can heal all the damage that this life can throw at you. And this life can throw a lot of damage. But I turn around and I see this gentleman with a long white beard, very pink skin that glistens like the sand in the sun. And these eyes that they just pierce right through you and pretty much get in and grab your soul. And I'm looking at this guy, and the first thing I think is, you must be God. And he smiled like this big grin, and without using his mouth, he sent back to me, I'm not God. And my follow-up thought was, if you're not God, then are you Jesus? Like that was just, it was like one or the other or both, I didn't quite understand it. And that was my follow-up thought. Then are you Jesus? And he smiled again and said, no, son, I'm not Jesus. I'm here to be your guide. I'm here to help you go wherever you want to go. I can help you go back to your body, or I can help you to go anywhere in the universe. And that's when I was like, anywhere in the universe? I was like, what? I was so excited about that. But then I realized, I was like, but there's this power coming off him. This unconditional love. I'd never felt anything close to that on earth. And so I asked him, I said, I want more of that. Where's that coming from? And he explained that was coming from my home and from his home. And that I could go to our home and I could see more of this and find more of this. And I said that, well, then there's no decision. That's where I want to go. I want to go home. And he explained that it was going to be a bit of a journey, but he's going to take me on this journey and we were going to go home. So we began the journey. So essentially for 3 days, while my body was in a coma, I went on my journey to home. Yeah.
Wow. Well, of course we want to know more. So, that's just, it's wonderful too, because it matches so many people's similar stories. And then I don't know if you know, but Eden is a medium.
Yeah. Let me say this. Yeah. I as you're telling, you're describing your story, it's filling me up with like vindication, because this is the same kind of thing, very, very similar to when I channel a spirit and they come through and they say things just like that. And, I'm still human and I know that I'm good at this and I help people, but I still have some deep seated like doubt, I guess, that, who am I to do this, and to know what it's really like on the other side. So this is confirming for me the things that they do come through with, and it does give people comfort to hear that. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, you're firsthand. You've experienced this firsthand, and it's just unbelievable to me. It means so much more to me than your average person, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, because even like I've done a lot of sessions with Eden. I do intuitive work, but she's like a gifted medium, and a lot of what I've learned through the years working with her matches what you say, and it has given me so much peace, and the ability to talk to people even if they're on the brink of death or going through something scary, or like not being afraid of that. So can you further tell us then what happened? And did you, I'm so curious, eventually you'll get to it, but did you have a part of you that wanted to stay there? Or did you feel like you missed
Not at all.
Earth?
I didn't want to stay on Earth. When Drake asked me, I can take you anywhere you want to go, he pointed towards my body where I had just come from. And when I looked there, the body was in full seizure. There was one guy trying to straddle it and strap it down. And while that was all happening, it just felt like hell. I felt if there was any hell there, that would have been hell to go back to my body. So to me, there was no question. I didn't want to go there. I wanted to go towards this love energy. And I was so intrigued by this love energy because I was a fairly abused kid in so many different ways. And this abuse was showing up as cracks in my soul. And this love was just filling in all these cracks. And I didn't understand that. Like, how was that possible? The damage was gone. A whole lifetime of damage gone like that so fast. Because the love.
Because of love. The love is the answer. It's the answer to everything.
So to me, that there was no question. I wanted to go with him. I wanted to go with him to my home, to his home, our home. Yeah.
So home being in spirit home,
afterlife.
The afterlife, not physical home here.
Yeah, not physical home. Because here's not a home.
Okay. That's what I wanted to clarify that. Okay, so that was your choice.
Yes.
So you did want to stay there where you were. Okay.
But also there where I was not home yet. He was showing me that home would be a journey, and it would be a journey of distance and understanding, that I would have to go with him and gain new understandings for me to be able to get to this home, this place that he was calling home. He deemed it home. I just accepted whatever he said because I was such a novice to this whole process. I had no idea that this was what heaven would be like or what dying would be like. But it was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Was there any feeling for you of because it didn't seem like you hesitated in any way? I just want to go where the love is. Did you at all think about your loved ones that were here in the physical? Missing them?
Not even for a second. Wow. It wasn't even on my options.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when he asked, where do you want to go? You can go anywhere in the universe. The first thing I thought of was like, well, there's that. And I saw my body and I'm like, then that looks like hell.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's the rest of the universe. And then the very next thought I had was, well, then there's this love energy. And I wonder if I could go to wherever that's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I had that thought, he helped me understand that I could go home. Yeah. So we began this process, and Drake took me on this like crazy journey. And I was raised Christian, and I was raised really like staunch, strict Christian. I mean, don't take your church clothes off on Sunday Christian.
Wow.
Like you stayed in the Sabbath mode all Sunday, no matter what. And so being raised that way, I thought, well, I have a special back door to heaven then. I have like a special VIP, some special way for me to get right into heaven because I've learned the right path. And Drake helped me understand. He's like, I love that you feel that. And I love that you have that exuberance about your Christianity. But what I want you to do is I want to help you understand a little bit more. And as you understand a little bit more, you can go a little bit further, and then a little bit further, and then a little bit further. So I begin that process of learning, really learning, and going towards this home, this heaven space. And so as soon as we began that journey, I was almost like rolling my eyes. I was like, Drake, I know it's all about love. Love has got to be the most important thing. And he started laughing, like in a loving way. He laughed with me. And he said, no, actually, love is vitally important. And he explained that love is the fuel that makes the whole universe run, everything in the universe. But that it wasn't the most important, that first and foremost, before I could give or have love, I had to feel authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And authenticity was the most important thing for me, that I needed to figure out who I really was, not who I thought I was, but who I really was. So he had this process of helping me do that, peeling away all these aspects of myself that I had. And I truly did have a certain personality that would be with my family, a different version at work, a different version at school, a different version at the gym, a different version on dates with girls. So I had all these different versions of myself out there. And he helped me understand that there was one core to all of those beings. And that's who I really was. So I peeled off all these masks all these personas I had to allow myself to be authentic and be my real self. And then from there, he helped me know the reason that I came to Earth School.
Before you continue,
yes.
How long did it take when you said you peeled the masks off? Was that like instant?
Like a fraction of a second. Yeah.
Very different. Very different than here. Okay.
Yes. Here I think that would take a long time.
Yeah.
There, as soon as I could realize that was a false part of myself, I was okay releasing it, letting it go.
Okay.
And what was interesting to me is that a lot of these I was putting up out of some type of protection, some type of not wanting to feel vulnerable. I was putting a mask on. So it was really neat. The next thing he needed to teach me is why I was in Earth School, why I went there. Mm-hmm. And that the whole purpose of life is to come to Earth School, not Earth classroom. Not Earth courtroom, but Earth classroom.
No judgment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I was coming here to learn, to grow, and to get better at something. And that I wasn't coming to be judged and either thrown away or saved. Mm-hmm. Where that was a little different than how I was raised. I felt growing up that the whole reason we were on Earth was to be tested. I really felt it was a test. And we either passed the test or we failed the test. And he explained that nope, that to me, I understood that incorrectly, that the purpose of life is to come to the classroom and to not believe it's a courtroom. But in a classroom, you're going to learn. In a courtroom, you're going to feel guilty and you're going to be stuck. And that's not what Earth School is. It's a classroom. Yeah. Mm. So that's where he stepped up and say, now it's time to learn about love. And as soon as I could be authentic and know why I went to Earth, then I could be ready for love. And he helped me understand that loving everyone was vitally important, and that I needed to understand that every bit of creation was another finger on God's hands, and that our Creator, our one source Creator, the great I am presence, or the all I am, or what in Islam they would call Allah, mm-hmm. or Yahweh in Judaism. All these different names, it's still the same being, or the same presence.
Yeah.
That all of us are extensions of this, right? And so he helped me understand that loving everyone is actually loving God. Mm-hmm. And that we should love everyone because loving everyone is loving God. And in essence, also loving ourselves because we are, again, an extension of God's hand. Mm-hmm. But that was pretty cool. That was pretty interesting. At that point, Drake showed me that my whole life, I had this inner voice. I had a voice inside me. And this inner voice is something that we're all born with. And it's like we are born with an umbilical cord connected to our Creator. And it's through that cord we get to communicate and feel and hear an inner voice. Mm-hmm. And that all of us have an inner voice. All of us. Yeah. Whether we believe it or not, we have it. And, he showed me many times in my life when I was warned, don't go do this. And I still did it. Great harm happened to me. Great obstacles came in front of me. And other times he showed me, I would hear, go do this. And I would go do it. And great benefit and great blessings would happen to me. So he helped me understand that, listening to that inner voice is vitally important for our relationship with our Creator. And that part of learning to follow an inner voice is to also learn that there are enemies to that inner voice, and that technology in itself will become some type of enemy to that inner voice. Now, this experience happened in 2003. Back then, technology was in the infancy of what it is today. And now it makes sense. It didn't make sense to me. I'm like, how is Yahoo and Ask Jeeves gonna replace God for me or replace the inner voice? But now I see it. I see it with what we do when we have any confusion or we need guidance on anything, we all go to Google or we all go use a search engine, right? And instead of going to our inner Google, going to God, we're going to our outward source, right? So they show that technology is going to essentially try to replace God or God's voice in our lives. And the next was to release all prejudice. The next step for me was to release prejudice. But this one was interesting to me. I didn't feel that I had any prejudice whatsoever. I was raised in a biracial family, and I felt like I was the least prejudiced person I knew. I felt that, being raised in the family I was raised in, that I didn't have any prejudice whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So I felt that, that shouldn't be anything for me, releasing prejudice. And that's when Drake, he gave me kind of a symbolism. And he said, well, if you don't have prejudice, how do you feel about prejudiced people? And he showed like a group of prejudiced people. And I could recognize like two of them because they were people I knew.
Oh,
and when he said that, I started to go off. I was like, well, let me tell you about prejudiced people. I hate prejudiced people. And here's what's crazy is I was describing my feelings of prejudiced people. He took a little effigy of who I was and took it away from the side of non-prejudice, and he carried it over to prejudice and set it down. And he said, do you understand that by hating prejudiced people, you are prejudiced? And that was like, boom, like,
that's huge
for me. So I had to understand that even prejudiced people need to be loved, which that's hard to do. And he also showed me one of those people that I knew who was on the prejudice side of things. He let me see one of the experiences he had at a very young age and why he would frame himself as a prejudice or some type of prejudice from that point forward. And it did make some type of sense to me, but it didn't give justification, right? And so I did have a better understanding after that point that yes, prejudice is just some part of healing or suffering better. And that's what people who are prejudiced are doing. They're just suffering. Yeah. But I can suffer too and be prejudiced if I am prejudiced towards prejudiced people. Yeah. So I had to release that. I had to release that to him and let him understand that I was ready to release it to God, give it to God and say, you know what? I don't need any prejudice, even towards prejudiced people. And then as he took me forward and closer towards where our home is, he helped me understand that I have the power of creation, that all of us have the power of creation. And those tools of creation are our thoughts, that our thoughts themselves are the power of creation. Mm-hmm. And what I didn't understand is that the holiest place on earth, the holiest temple you can put yourself in on earth is these temples right here. Mm-hmm. What's going on here is far more important than anything going on out in front of us. And I include great miracles, great wars, great whatever. What's going on here is vitally more important than anything going on outside of us. Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized that I have the power of creation because I can choose my thoughts. I can choose to encourage good thoughts. I can choose to discourage bad thoughts. And with that power, I have the power of creation. And that's when he explained that if you have the power of creation, how important it is for you to avoid negative influences. Mm. And he helped me understand which influences I had in my life that were negative. I had a lot. Some were friends. Some were people I knew or worked with. Some were the TV shows I was watching, or some of the movies I was watching. It was important for me to recognize if I still allowed that influence, that was my choice. But I needed to start recognizing those influences that were affecting my power of creation. And that brought me to the very tail end. We were starting to get towards this amazing place this place far bigger than 100 suns, like so much bigger than what we even recognize the sun to be. And this is the heaven space. It is like a sphere. It's almost like a planet itself, but it's a planet without a sun. It's almost like a whole solar system, but it's a planet. And as we were getting closer and closer, he helped me understand that as I avoid negative influences, I needed to understand that there was purpose even in those influences. There was purpose in evil, that if I didn't have a bad choice, there was no reason to have a good choice. He explained that the whole reason that all of us came away from our heaven home is because all of our choices were made already because we love so much synchronistically to our Creator. So whatever the Creator wants, that's what we wanted. It was very hard for us to have a distinct thought that wasn't a thought that the Creator had. As being parts and creations of the Creator, we needed to have our own independent thought. And the best way to do that was to step far, far away and step through a veil of forgetfulness so that we couldn't remember even the amount of love that we have for our Creator. And as we step through that veil, now we are in this place like a school where we can make choices. But if all the choices are only good choices, we're still not learning. So we've got to have bad choices too. And therein lies the opportunity to learn. That sometimes our mistakes, we're learning just as much as the good choices, if not more. And so that there is purpose even in evil on earth. But what we have to understand is there will always be balance in everything. And that as evil happens on earth, the corrective action of love and light and purity will correct so far that it corrects that evil. And that's one of the laws of the universe. And that as long as I'm witnessing something evil, as long as I know that there will be a corrective light action, and maybe because I'm supposed to take it, but that action, that correction will always happen. And then it makes you feel completely different about God. Because many of my friends and my uncle himself had a very hard time thinking there was a God. Because if there was a God, why would God allow so many bad things happen to good people?
Yeah.
And that explains why. And
universe always corrects.
It does. It always corrects. And what's really great is through that veil of forgetfulness, there's all these angels, there's all these ancestors and loved ones who are assisting us and working with us. And many, many times, and I would say almost 100% of the time, when great tragedies happening from evil actions, there were angels and helpers there to grab the soul and pull it out of the body before trauma, so that the trauma could be experienced on the body, but the soul didn't receive the trauma. And so that the lesson could be learned because of free agency, the ability to choose between good and evil. But yet there was also this protective element that would allow the soul to not receive such a bad version of trauma. And that led me to the last principle. The last principle is that we're all one, all of us, that we are all one in love and purpose. And we are all, again, all fingers on the hand of God. That for me to harm any other human or any other form of creation, for me to harm it is to harm myself, to harm my Creator. And that I need to have love, honor, and respect for all things. All things in creation, I have to have love, honor, and respect. And as I can have a better embodiment of that love, honor, and respect, I can be closer to my Creator. And then as that happened, we touched down in heaven. Literally, my feet hit grass, and I was very impressed that I, number one, had feet. Number two, because you think you die, you must be this like wispy spirit. And for some reason in my mind, I thought that once you died, you wore like a white gown, and maybe you were carrying a harp. I didn't really know. I just knew that I was probably going to be wearing a white dress or something, and I wouldn't have feet. You don't see people's feet when people recreate the heaven experience in in TV and movies. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking down and I see my feet, and I see my feet touch this grass. And I felt like the two came together like this. I felt like the grass came up between my toes and it became one with me. Mm. And as it became one with me, I could feel the strongest energy of love. More love than I'd ever felt in all my life combined in that first second of touching that grass. Wow. And I felt that every blade of grass had a supreme intelligence, a supreme consciousness to it. And that together it worked in a team to do what it did. And what it did is it glorified the love that was everywhere. And it amplified the love that was everywhere. And this grass, it had millions of shades of green and like light yellow. And it actually radiated. It radiated like waves of color coming off of it. And you could actually smell and taste the smell of this grass. And the coolest thing is the grass itself actually played music. Like there was a symphony of energy coming off of the grass. So even to plug into it, I was hearing this beautiful music of what the grass is. And I'm just sitting here experiencing the grass, and Drake is kind of laughing. He's not laughing at me, but like always, he's laughing with me. Mm. And he's like, if you think the grass is great, you should see the flowers. And I was like, there's flowers? What? And instantly he brought my consciousness from right there, working with the grass. And then bam, I was experiencing a flower, and I was experiencing it as if I was a bee, like down close and personal. Yeah. And I was getting really close and feeling the consciousness of the flower and feeling the healing power. And here's what's really cool. It was like a tulip type flower. And everywhere that the head of the tulip or the blossom of the tulip was, there was like radiating love coming out of it. And it was like, it kept hitting over me. And I could feel that. I felt like I was in this, a car wash of heaven. Like the grass started the process, the flowers continued the process. And then Drake asked me, he's like, do you want to see the trees? Do you know there's trees? And I was like, there's trees. And that's when I started to plug into the trees and see that all of them are networked together as one organism, but yet they were so pristinely distinct to each individual consciousness. And that's when the water actually started to approach me, and it approached me at my feet, and it asked me, like the water actually asked me, do you want us on you? And I said, yes, I do want you on me. And so it started going up over me from my toes first to my feet, my ankles, my knees, all the way up till it covered to the very tip of my head. And then it started to recede back down. But as it completed itself, I felt like I knew now what they were doing on earth when they did baptism. Oh. I felt that this water, as it came up and went over me, it took every little hairline fracture or damage energetically that I had. And it mended it. It healed it. And it healed it out of this pristinely distinct love for me. And I didn't feel worthy of this love. None of us could. I feel that we could have been the perfect person and still not be worthy of this love. And as that water poured down off of me, I just was sitting there for a few seconds, like, how is this possible? How can there be so much love in one place? And that one single blade of grass has more love than the entire earth combined. There is so much love there that it's almost indescribable. That's why it was really hard to write my story in a book, because I couldn't get it into words. For many years, I couldn't. And so as this is all happening, Drake, he's just kind of looking at me like a proud father almost. And he's so excited to see what's happening to me in my own transition and healing. And then he says, Vinny, this is going to be really hard, but it's going to be worth it. And he pulled me in to give me a hug. But what I didn't realize is what they give there is so much better than a hug.
Mm.
As he pulled me in, the core, our hearts, as they touched, we became one light body. And with that touching of the two cores to each other, it was like a pulsar. It was like boom, like a huge expansion of love energy. And I could feel like waves of energy flowing off of the two of us hugging. And I could feel an amount of love that I didn't know was possible in all the universe combined. I just didn't know that love like this existed. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling the healing power of this love that Drake had for me. And while we were in this hug, I started to hear in my ear the words of my brother, my earth brother.
Mm-hmm.
He was giving a special prayer over my body. And as he gave that prayer over my body, I was hearing him say the words, I bless you to be made whole. And I bless you to come back to your body. And as he said that and completed that prayer, I felt the strongest pull. It pulled me out of heaven. It pulled me completely away from that place. It didn't give me a choice. It completely took my choice from me. But it was such a strong love pulling me out of there. I couldn't resist it. I had to allow it. And I did fight it in the beginning. And I ended up waking up 3 days later after I was in a coma, brain dead. My death day was the 18th. I woke up on the 21st at 1:11 in the morning. And I woke up to a new world. I was a different person, a different being. And the first thing I could feel was I felt like I was a huge whale put into a sardine can. I felt extremely claustrophobic in the beginning. I still suffer with that a little bit, but I felt extremely claustrophobic, and I had to take everything off me. I took all the sensors off me. I took all the life support equipment. And if you've seen someone on life support, there's all sorts of wires and tubes and they're coming out of everywhere. I yanked everything off of me. And I stood there for a few moments, just gasping for breath. And as I stood there, I realized that I was in a place that I didn't want to be. And I knew I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to go home. And so I began my process of trying to check myself out of the hospital. And 6 hours later, I did. I got checked out of the hospital. I went home. And for the longest time, I was really suicidal. I wanted to go back.
Yeah.
I wanted to go to my real home. And so I started looking up, again, we didn't have Google back then. We had Ask Jeeves. That was like a real thing. So I was all typing on my computer. I went to Ask Jeeves and I looked up the most dangerous jobs. And one of these insurance companies out there had a list that if you had these jobs, you could not get life insurance because it had such high fatalities. Yeah. One of them was like underwater welder. And I would have had to have been a Marine for 4 years just to start that job. And I wasn't a Marine. So I knew that was off the table. But number 2 was to be a king crab fisherman. And so I did a little bit more research. I found that you could go and apply to join a boat in Seattle. So you do a test in Seattle. And if you pass that test, then you do another test in Anchorage. So I did all that. I was starting to get this process where I could have a dangerous job. And with a quick slip on the deck of a boat, I could be back. I could be back in heaven.
Oh my gosh.
I was making all my plans when I met my earth angel. And my earth angel is Andrea, who's my wife. And she let me get a little glimmer of that heaven love, a little glimmer of the heaven light that I saw there. I saw through her eyes. And that for the first time, until I met her, I didn't want to even wake up another day. I wanted to just go back. And as soon as I met her, I wanted to start waking up every morning.
And you have kids too, right?
We do. We've got 2 amazing kids, and we've been married 21 years. It's been awesome. It's not a dream, but it's awesome.
And I think that this means that you, in order for you to have met Andrea and experienced love like that on earth, you had to go through all of that, the whole process in heaven.
I would agree with that.
To let go of all of those things, because otherwise you would be here and never experience that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I feel that totally. And another cool gift was right after I met Andrea, she made me go to my family reunion, and that was not my speed. That wasn't my style. And I went to this family reunion in a little town in Wyoming called Afton, Wyoming. We went to the high school there. They were doing a presentation on the history of the town. And up on this big movie screen comes a picture of my guide.
Oh,
and
Drake.
Of Drake.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it. Andrea saw it, but I was describing him so much because I wouldn't stop talking about it. Yeah. I would tell anybody and everybody about it back then. And at least anybody who wouldn't judge me or listen to me, which was very few people. She was one of them. She didn't judge me or look down on me for telling her. So I told her everything I could about Drake. She felt like she knew him. So when she saw that picture, she goes, "That's your guide. That's Drake." And I turned and I'm like, "That's not him." And then when I looked, I like froze. And then my legs like turned into water. And I was like, "That is him." I couldn't say it, but I was feeling like I wanted to scream, "That's him." But the problem was it didn't say his name was Drake. It said his name was Charles. And I'm like, what the hell? How come this? Why is that inconsistent? Why is that wrong? But I recognized his last name. It was the same as my grandmother.
Oh, so he was a family member.
So I did. We went right there to my grandmother's house. And I said, "Grandma, tell me about this Charles in your ancestry." And her follow-up response was, "You mean great grandpa Drake? I can tell you all about him."
Oh my gosh, chills again.
And after that, I was floored. I was totally.
Oh my
floored.
gosh.
He kept his middle name very private, and he would use his middle name to his friends and to his family, because he did do government. He did very professional things, and he also was a clergyman. He was one of the first clergy in the little town of Afton. He kept his proper name for his clergy work. He kept it for his business work, but his actual name, his middle name that he went by, Drake, that was only for friends and family. So even that was so awesome. Oh, even how that all played out was amazing. And
amazing
confirmation, huge confirmation.
Yeah.
And up until that point, I did have this little voice inside me saying, "You're delirious." I had a neurologist tell me that my imagination was going to make up a bunch of things, and then I needed to make sure I didn't believe anything that it was going to make up. And so I had this side of me that's like, maybe not. I don't think this really happened. But as soon as I saw that picture of Drake,
confirmation,
and then heard it that his actual name that he went by with his friends and family was Drake. I mean, it was just, yeah.
Wow.
It was life-changing for sure, because now I couldn't deny it. Now I couldn't say it was a delusion. I couldn't say it was brain damage. I couldn't say it was oxygen deprivation. I had to go with it. I had to take the reality of it, that this really happened. And I needed to learn how to live with that now. And that's what I've been doing for 20 years now. 21 now. 21 years. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. That is like powerful story. And, it matches so much of what we know. And so it's extra confirmation for us as well. And I don't know if Eden thought of this or not, but I'm telling it real. We only have like 6 minutes left. I'm telling it super quick. But Eden and I channel Prince, the artist Prince, after he passed. And it's a long story that our listeners know about it. But one time before we really started regularly channeling him a lot, he had gotten to a level that sounds very much like what you saw with the colors. And he says, "Kim, go get your Hawaiian totem statue." And Eden had never been to my house. And I'm like, "I do have one." So I get it. And he's like, "You hold it. Eden, you close your eyes. At the same time, I'm going to say go. You guys close your eyes and you're going to see and feel what I feel here." So we both did it for a few minutes. And we said, okay, we're going to say 1, 2, 3, and we're going to say what we saw and felt. And we both felt this. That was like the biggest undescribable joy I've ever felt in my life still.
Bliss.
Mm-hmm.
We saw all the colors like you described. We saw Prince there with balloons. Remember that? He looked like he did in Purple Rain. We both saw the exact same thing. I'm getting all these chills again right now. But anyway, it just is so much confirmation, but it's all just so beautiful, and it just makes me even more motivated and inspired to be on this path of helping people be in more of the vibration of love. That's what this podcast is about. Because we're short on time, I would love for you a couple of things. We want to know, did you ever contact the paramedic?
I did.
And then also about your book and what you do now.
Okay. So yeah, I did talk to the paramedic. I went to lunch with him. I tried to beg him to buy him a car or do something to make up for this great thing that he did for me. He actually thanked me. He said, "Hey, I got in so much trouble from that. It encouraged me to become a fireman. I'm going to become a fireman now." And so he did end up becoming a fireman, and I'm sure that he's doing well now. I have lost touch with him. So if you're out there listening, I want to hear from you.
Do you want to do a shout out? What's his name?
And so I have to actually go back to the record to pull the name. Yeah, it's been that long.
Okay.
Yeah, I do know though that last that I had heard from him, this was about 17, 18 years ago. He was like actively climbing the ladder of leadership as a fireman. So
amazing.
I feel he's probably doing really well and probably ready to retire soon. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So that's my experience. I did do a book. It's called The Light After Death. It's on Amazon. It's on Audible. I was just telling my story verbally for about 15 years, and I had so many people coming up asking for a book version. I finally did it. I was trying to write the book version for almost the entire time, but I felt like I wasn't doing it justice. I felt like I was downgrading it by trying to write it. And finally, the amazing gifting talent of Lynn Taylor, he's my co-author. We were able to get it expressed with not downgrading it, but giving it due diligence and giving it the justice it needed. And what I do now is I'm a coach. I teach people. I teach them how to connect to their higher self. I teach them how to develop whatever they want to develop in themselves. And essentially, I help them find a higher path. Find clarity, find purpose, find why they're here, what's their natural gifts and talents. Or I have some CEOs that I work with in a couple of different industries. They just have big decisions to make. They want a little outsider information. They want someone to give them a spiritual perspective, or someone from the spiritual perspective to give them some guidance. So that's what I do. I do all of that through my nonprofit. Living God's Light is my nonprofit. We're a spiritual education and training organization. We help people take whatever religion they're on and become better at that religion. And if somebody's an atheist or an agnostic, we help them become a better atheist or agnostic. Like we want them to find a better way of being. And to me, that's what my mission is to help others figure out that this life is just a quick school, a quick little pit stop, and that life went long before we got here, and it's going to go long after we leave. And it's important we make some good decisions here to secure ourselves some great futures. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Talk Purpose and Truth podcast. Find out more at talkpurposeandtruth.com. And follow us at Talk Purpose Truth on Instagram and Facebook.